Batman is a legendary hero who long ago realised that fear is a powerful weapon, and he uses the power of fear to scare criminals. His ultimate aim is to scare them straight, of course.
When the mugger or the thief stops to think twice, that is fear. That is what I am.
But even if criminals aren't scared straight, having them afraid of him makes it a hell of a lot easier to take them down. After all, a scared man is not a focused man, and an unfocused man is much easier to defeat in a fight. But anyone who has this deeper knowledge, and indeed respect, for the power of fear, must himself have a great amount of fear, otherwise he wouldn't be able to understand it. But with that being said, Batman has fought criminals, monsters, and even gods, and never once hesitated. But if none of these things scare him, then what does? Well, this has been discussed a lot in comics, movies, TV shows, and video games, and this video is going to take a look at what is Batman's greatest fear. The first thing that comes to mind when thinking of Batman's fear is of course bats.
Why bats, Master Wayne?
Bats frighten me. This time my enemies shared my dread.
There's a reason that Bruce Wayne chose bats as the symbol of his crusade. As a child he was scared of bats, and now he embodies his fear and uses its power against his enemies. Which does make sense. After all, Batman was born when he was a child, so when he chose a fear to embody, his childhood fear made the most sense. Though I should say this wasn't the only reason for him choosing bats. In the Batman Year One story, he prayed to his dead parents for guidance, and at that point a bat flew into the room he was in, and he took this as a sign from his parents, and decided to embody the fear of the bat. Though personally I'm not a big fan of this being the reason he chose bats. I'd like it to be a bit more methodical in his reasoning and a bit more logical. But in either case, bats have always been a deep fear of Bruce Wayne's. But I think it's safe to say that at this point he's overcome and even embraced this fear. After all, he dresses as a bat and spends most of his time in his headquarters, which is a bat-infested cave, so he's clearly not bothered by them anymore. The next biggest fear was mentioned in the Lego Batman movie. In fact, it was mentioned quite a lot, and I think they really beat the audience over the head with this message.
Your greatest fear is being a part of a family again.
The defining moment of Bruce Wayne's life is, without a doubt, the night his parents died. On that night, Bruce Wayne's life was changed forever, and Batman was born. So it makes sense that he would be scared of having a family again. Not because he doesn't want a family, but because he would be terrified of losing that family and having a repeat of the tragedy of his childhood. And that's a logical fear that anyone who's lost a loved one would have. But is it Batman's greatest fear? Well, no. Ever since Batman first took Dick Grayson on as his Robin, he has had a family. And despite what many might think after seeing the live action films, since then that family has only grown larger.
You forget, Alfred. I work alone.
I am a shadow, protector of all but friend to no one. I am a solitary spirit of vengeance who walks the night alone.
And given that the Bat family is still getting bigger and bigger, it's safe to say that he clearly isn't scared of having a family. Though it is of course true that he is scared of his family being hurt or dying, as has been shown many times in media. So yes, he's scared that his Bat family could get hurt, as any good patriarch would be. But it clearly isn't a crippling fear, as he allows them to constantly go up against monsters, murderers and violent psychopaths. And even the death of one of his Robins hasn't stopped him from using children in his crusade. And although he has on occasion stopped them from intervening when the danger has been high enough...
What the hell are you doing?
The right thing. Trust me.
I'm not crazy! Listen to me! We can help you! You don't need to do this! Alfred! Alfred! You son of a bitch! You cut my communications!
For the most part, he knows that his family can handle themselves, and don't always need him there to protect them.
You'll be fine.
Of course I will. You trained me.
But if losing them was his greatest fear, then clearly he'd do everything in his power to stop them from being superheroes. Because having them stop is the only way that he could ever keep them safe, and even then it's no guarantee of safety, as many accidents happen to us all the time. So for that reason, it can't be his greatest fear. After all, he's not taken the necessary steps that would logically be done if this was his greatest fear. But another obvious fear of Batman's is of course that others will go through the events he did as a child. After all, his entire crusade is based upon him losing his parents, and his desire to end crime, so that no one else will ever have to suffer as he did. and this is possibly a contender for his greatest fear. But I think that his true fear was best highlighted in the video game Batman Arkham Knight. In the game, Batman is infected with a virus that is warping his mind and DNA, turning him into the Joker.
Untreated, the blood's gestated too long. It's altering them. They're becoming...
Joker. My God.
It's a form of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, but mutated beyond anything on medical record.
It's a bit far-fetched, I know, but it's best not to question how this works and to just go with it. The majority of the game is spent with Batman desperately afraid of what he'll do when he finally becomes the Joker. After all, with his skill level and resources, he would be an unstoppable force and would burn Gotham, the very city he protects, to the ground.
Look at me! I'm amazing! And this body! I can't believe how strong it is!
And this seems to me to be part of his greatest fear. Not so much turning physically into the Joker, but the fear that he is becoming the very thing he fights against. That he is just as insane as the supercriminals he fights. And there certainly is a lot of similarities between him and his enemies. The costumes, the themed gadgets and weapons, and of course a complete disregard for the law. Yes, Batman doesn't kill, but he's broken nearly every other law there is. And in Batman vs Superman he even breaks this rule, and he's quite happy to murder anyone who gets in his way. And I think that Batman's real fear is that one day he'll snap and no longer know the difference between right and wrong. And instead of being Gotham's greatest protector, he will become his greatest enemy. After all, as Batman says in the Injustice 2 video game,
In my years fighting crime, I've learned one truth. That every villain is the hero of his own story.
And Batman is far too intelligent to have thought this and not also thought that he may be going down the same path. Now, I'm not saying Batman will become evil. In fact, I'm saying quite the opposite. Fear is there to stop you from doing something. Fear of fire stops us from putting our hands in a fire and burning ourselves. And in the same way, Batman's fear that he may one day go too far is the very thing that keeps him from crossing that line. And I would say that this is the only thing Batman fears more than the loss of his Bat family. Because not only would he become the thing he hates, but also if he did lose his mind, he would almost certainly have to kill the rest of the Bat family, as they would be the greatest threats to his power base, unless of course they joined him on the dark side. So really the two fears are linked into one, but I would say without any doubt that this is definitely Batman's greatest fear. Now this is of course just my own opinion of what I think Batman's greatest fear is, but the question is, what do you think? Do you agree with my logic, or do you think that Batman has a different greatest fear? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and I'd just like to say a quick thank you to those who made this video possible by donating to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. Patreon is a crowdfunding site that is helping us to bring you more videos each week and to raise funds for adapting comic book stories into short animated films. If you're interested in donating or just want to find out more, a link is in this video's description. And as always, thanks for watching and feel free to subscribe, share, like and comment.